In this episode, I take a massive step forwards in getting this thing back on the road. I get the gearbox back into the car, but unfortunately it's not been without its breakages, which you will obviously see as we get into the video. So we've taken a big step forwards, we've taken a small step backwards, but like I say, everything will be revealed in this episode. So I hope you enjoy it. I didn't. Let's get on with it. So let's start at the start. I've got the backing plate, flywheel and clutch in position using the gearbox intermediate shaft as the alignment tool. Everything went back on as it should do. I spent quite a lot of time just protecting the chassis with rags so I didn't risk damaging any of the paintwork when manhandling the gearbox into position. I got the angle of the engine set and lifted in the gearbox, aiming for the dowels that align from the back of the engine into the bell housing. I realised that things weren't going to be as straightforward as I first envisaged. The tolerance of getting the gearbox between the chassis and then getting the intermediate shaft into the back of the engine through the clutch teeth, it was just fighting me from the start. So I made a tactical retreat and put together what I hope to be much more of a robust plan. So a couple days later, I had a friend come over and we just tried to tackle this a far more considered approach. So I got the engine nicely supported on the engine crane with the load leveler so we could really fine tune the angle that the gearbox was coming towards the engine at, so we could then slide the intermediate shaft through the clutch into the back of the engine. I did put a small sight hole in the back of the bell housing to then put through an endoscope, which did help us align the intermediate shaft with the clutch, and I'm glad I did do that. Unfortunately, getting the gearbox back onto the engine wasn't without its casualty, and this is a good one, unfortunately, and I'm still yet to come up with a plan of how I can fix it. So, give you a bit of a very short backstory. To get the correct angle on the gearbox to engine, I had to jack up the engine somewhat to tip it up slightly so I could get the right angle to get the gearbox through the chassis and then get the input shaft into the back of the clutch, if that all makes sense. Now, I had to do the same when I removed the gearbox, so it's not something I wasn't aware of. But in the heat of the moment and trying to battle getting this thing aligned, I over-jacked the back of the engine, which caused one of the carburetor trumpets to hit the glass rear window and crack it. Now, this was literally one of my worst nightmares, because if you have been following for a long time now, I'm sure you won't remember, but I made the very comment when I was doing all of the paneling on the back of this car, the fact that the rear window was one of the only spots that I built myself into a dead end. And should it ever get broken, there is no way to get it out. So that's where we are. I am stuck with a broken rear screen. Somehow I need to get it out. I can't drill out the rivets and remove that back bulkhead panel because, again, if you remember, all of these panels that you see on this rear bulkhead, they all sort of interlock and tooth into each other. Even if I was to drill out the rivets, all of these have been bonded into place, so trying to remove them would absolutely ruin them. And that's exactly the same for inside the car. All of the panels are bonded into place, and trying to remove those would just ruin them. So that brings you up to speed on where I am with the car as it stands. I have the faint idea of a plan of attack to get this window out, but it needs some further investigation just to see if it is even viable. But obviously it needs to be repaired, so I need to come up with something. But yeah, my heart just sank when it was absolutely my fault. You know, I had a friend over giving me a hand getting this in, and he just saw me just sink to the floor in just absolute despair. I was gutted, absolutely gutted, because I knew what an absolute pain in the backside this is going to be to try and fix. Anyway, let's keep pressing on. So what I am going to do is continue the reassembly of the back of the car. You can see, yeah, gearbox is in place, and the gearbox did go in without any chips or marks to the chassis, which was lovely. It's been given a bit of a lick of silver paint and a bit of a clean up. Obviously that will sort of fade back when the car gets back out on the road, because it does look very, very bright. So next things probably will be drive shafts and basically just start working from the bottom up. So I'm not battling around other components that I've fitted sort of out of order, and then finishing off with the exhaust. So what I'll probably do is check in with you in a little while when I have stuck some more stuff on.
One eternity later.
So as we all know, that stripping something apart takes 1/10 of the time it does to reassemble it. So progress has been slow and steady on the reassembly of the back end of the car. Just been taking my time, just cleaning everything up before refitting it back to the car. All of the bolts have been torqued up to spec and then dabbed with a paint pen just to highlight that fact. So starting right from the very back, we've got the gearbox mounts fitted to the gearbox and chassis. Half shafts are on, the one side rebuilt with 2 new joints that I covered off in the last video, I think it was. Got the chassis brace. Below the manifold, you can see I've got the clutch slave cylinder is in place. And then, yeah, the bundle of snakes is loosely on. You can see here that there is some movement in the primaries, and that is critical when it comes to fitting the collectors. And I will be getting onto that next. Down the side, underneath the manifold, you may not be able to see, but the starter motor is in place as well. So yeah, things are shaping. So what I was saying before my neighbour arrived to give me a lift on with the back of the car was, actually I can't remember what I was saying. So anyway, other ancillaries have been fitted. I've the exhaust to go, which is the reason why the back of the car is now on. So that's happy days, slipped on an absolute treat. So I'm going to go ahead and fit the collectors and silencers. And then, yeah, we are slowly moving forwards. So I've got the silencers fitted and they come through the rear aperture absolutely perfectly. So I'm very happy about that. The oil catch can is now back in place. Got the distributor on and the HT leads all fitted up. Oil's back in the engine. I've got coolant back through the system. So I don't think there is anything stopping me trying to get this thing started up. Wish me luck. So there you go, a nice way to start to wrap up this episode. The engine fired up without any issue whatsoever. The front of the engine went back together as best as I hoped. In all honesty, it all looks bone dry, so I'm very happy about that. So fingers crossed, the sealing up of the timing cover gasket, water pump, etc. has gone according to plan. Now, I'm not going to be able to check whether the oil leak has been fixed, whether that was from the front main seal or from the sump, until I get the car out on the road for a drive. It's never used to drip oil when sat in the garage idling, so only time will tell on that one. And that's obviously the real critical issue that we were trying to solve in that whole sort of portion of the rebuild. The gearbox, I just need to connect up final couple linkages and fill it with oil. So that's why the car stayed in the garage rather than me rolling it out onto the drive. So that's something that I'll get buttoned up nice and easily, all being well. On to the next episode, and it's usual business, which is nice. I've got some fun new projects that I'm looking forward to starting. I've got a smaller Odyssey race battery that I want to fit, so I need to modify the battery tray, get the new battery in situ. I am also going to be looking at making a very subtle rear diffuser to cloak the back of the chassis that's visible underneath the bodywork. I'm just going to throw around a few ideas at this stage just to see if it's something I do want to actually commit and make out of aluminium. It may not be, it may not give me the look that I think it might do in my mind's eye. So there's that one to explore. I'm also going to look into making myself a gear shift surround with a reverse lockout. Tornado use a very clever cable system to allow the reverse gear to be engaged. I want to go slightly more retro looking and have the little lift up latch on the gear shift surround. So there's going to be a fun little engineering project in that that I'm looking forward to getting stuck into. So up until that point, subscribe, like, share, all of that fun stuff, and I will catch you in the next episode.